Welcome to Coffee, Eggs and Inspiration. It's a weekly show that goes out over YouTube and all of the major podcast platforms. And each week I get to sit with an inspiring individual, hear their story and share it with all of you. This week is no different. I'm here today with Aidan Cramer, who's the co-founder and CEO of JobLab. Welcome, Aidan.
Thanks for having me, Craig.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So look, I'll give you a little bit of an introduction here so you don't need to do it yourself. Aidan is a Leeds University graduate, correct? Dropped into the creative industry after that as an art director, I think, and did a number of things. I'm going to keep some of them quiet because there's some really surprising things, and I'm going to ask questions during the interview on this. Some of them I don't know the answer to, so it's a voyage of discovery for me. You pretty quickly though fell into entrepreneurship, and you were an alumni, or alumnus I should say, of the Mass Challenge, which is an accelerator for startups, right? And a technology commentator on talk radio, a City AM guest writer.
Yes.
A pretty prolific author, I've noticed, on Medium as well, so check some of his articles out, they're really interesting. And of course the current business, which is all consuming, and that's JobLab. It's a graduate recruitment platform that Aidan can explain much better than me. 30,000 members, I guess those are candidates for recruitment, and more than 70 universities. Pretty impressive number of things that you've done in a very short period of time. You're living in London now, right?
Yeah, living in South London.
Yeah, in South London, which part?
Clapham.
Clapham.
Yeah.
The between the commons.
Exactly.
Fantastic. So you didn't want to stay in Leeds? Is Leeds your hometown, or?
I grew up in northwest London.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun in Leeds, but yeah, it was time to come back down and take things seriously.
It's a good student town, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Loved the city.
Yeah. I was up in the northeast actually this week at Durham. It's a little bit further than Leeds, I know, but felt like the Arctic Circle. It was very nice up there. Tell me a little bit more about what drew you so quickly after university into entrepreneurship. It's not a usual course. Generally, people work for a while for somebody else.
Yeah, I guess I've always had a bit of an itch around entrepreneurship. When I was studying, I ran an eBay business selling office chairs, to pay for nights out, and that kind of taught me about the power of kind of online dynamics to make money and just have a bit of ownership and control of your own finances. So I studied advertising. I kind of fell into the world of advertising, started as kind of a junior creative, and quite quickly realized that the work I was doing wasn't having as much of an impact as I kind of had assumed it would. Our first brief, we had something like £1 million to spend to help a shoe company launch their new shoe, and you put your heart and soul into the creative brief, and it kind of inevitably gets shot down as a junior, and it's quite demotivating. So I wanted to do something that kind of I had control over, and I could kind of push something forward. So left that and ultimately ended up on graduate job boards, so Reed, Indeed, and realised that they were just one iteration away from newspaper classified ads put online. They were CV black holes. People were applying to lots of jobs, not hearing anything back. I had a lot of friends in a similar position where they didn't know what to do, and I had one friend who was so demotivated by the process that she ended up suffering from a bout of depression. And there was this quarter-life crisis, it's been coined, where people don't know what to do, and there's no real transition from education into employment.
Quarter-life crisis.
Quarter-life crisis, yeah. So kind of found myself in this area where there was a lot of kind of anxiety, unnecessary anxiety, a lot of inefficiency with the technology. So decided to kind of go all in and try and create a solution to this problem.
So before we get to the solution, so bring this to life. Talk us through a day in the life of somebody who's at university or another institution and they're starting to apply. What happens?
So typically,
traditionally,
first port of call, you may go to the career services, but they are unfortunately quite outdated, quite slow moving, and
outdated how?
So they typically cater to the large corporates that do the traditional milk rounds. So they'll go around to universities, they'll do some career fairs, and they're not using the technology available to get their students out and get the exposure that they need to help them get into employment. And we're seeing that kids leaving university, or even who don't go to university, they're not being prepared for the world of work. You're not getting courses in how to interview, how to start a first job, and that's why we're getting all this pushback from companies about the millennial generation, no respect, entitled, because they just don't know what it's like to transition into work. So, the people that do know what they want to do, that's firstly like a really big challenge. A lot of people entering the world of work don't know what they're great at, they don't know what to focus on. So they end up applying to a handful of jobs that they like the look of, not hearing anything back, casting the net wider, not hearing anything back, applying to hundreds of jobs, and often taking the first thing that comes back to them.
And this is through the so-called job boards, so these are listings?
Exactly, so kind of just listings online that they're going through and applying to ones that they feel are a good fit for them. And we find that often, people aren't choosing a career path that ultimately caters to their unique talent and their unique passion.
Why is that?
Because it's through, or partly we believe through a lack of understanding as to what they're truly good at, and this lack of understanding as to how to find something that you're passionate about and pursue it. So often people are choosing careers that are kind of prescribed to them by the university, by their family, by their friends, but not really taking the time to find out what's the right thing for them.
I have a lot of conversations with people I work with, actually including you, about this topic, and it can be confusing. My son's 17, so he's thinking about where to go next, and it can be confusing if you focus, I think, on the what rather than the why.
Exactly.
Right. So exactly as you say, the why is what drives you, what you're passionate about. And that's really the North Star, the stable North Star, but it can be served by many whats.
Absolutely.
Very interesting observations, and of course this is a dilemma not just for university graduates.
Of course,
Lots of others coming out of university. I'm going to pause here so that we do a little segue and ask you about something completely different before we get to the solution that you've created.
Sure.
I saw on your profile when I was looking at it that you are a Goldfish buoyancy engineer, which means you apparently developed a life jacket for a goldfish.
Yes. Tell
me about that. What is going on there?
So it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. My girlfriend, still my girlfriend, had a 23-year-old goldfish. So a 23-year-old goldfish.
How long do they usually?
Well, apparently that's like they can live to 30 years old or so.
Really?
So this was a very well cared for goldfish, and I had my questions as to whether the parents were replacing the goldfish every few years, but no, it looked old and it was old. And anyway, one Christmas.
Can I just ask what an old goldfish looks like?
So that they go grey.
They do?
It was white. The scales looked like they'd come off, and it looked like an old fish.
Okay.
But anyway, so this fish one day couldn't float anymore and was stuck at the bottom of the tank. And after 23 years, the family
just sank.
It just sank and was kind of sat on the bottom. Had a swim bladder problem. So as a good entrepreneur, saw a problem that needed solving, and cut up my girlfriend's one of her bikinis, tied a cork to it, and then got the strap around the goldfish to give it the right level of buoyancy so the goldfish could swim again. And anyway, we filmed the experience, put it on YouTube, ended up getting something like 60 million views and went viral. So it was.
So if somebody types in it, what they search for?
Sally the fish.
Sally the fish. Good.
Or Sally Fish life jacket, and you'll definitely find it.
Sally Fish life jacket. 60 million views.
So it went very viral on Facebook. It got picked up by Unilad and some of those sites, and it was quite crazy.
Wow. Did you monetize that in any way?
So we did get a bit of money from it. Actually, we went on a little holiday break. mainly from some publications that published it without letting us know, and then they decided to pay us afterwards. Not mentioning any names.
So I'm sure people are dying to know, is this fish still living?
Unfortunately not, no.
Well, I hope it wasn't a problem with
it was nothing to do with
so.
the apparatus. She had a good final few years, but yeah,
a few years. So a few years living in this.
Yeah.
And this is a product that I imagine that it's a fairly niche market. Did you?
It's a very niche market. No, we haven't expanded the range. It's I still get a few emails from people asking for instructions.
So you can't buy them online?
You can't buy them online, no, unfortunately.
Right.
But maybe that's after Job Lab we can start.
There you go. Well, maybe as well as quite a complementary business, I imagine. Which takes us back to Job Lab, of course. So
yes.
tell me about the concept of Job Lab.
So as I was saying, we fundamentally believe there is a disconnect between employment and education, and our job is to, or our mission is to build the bridge to help people transition into meaningful work. So meaningful work is about finding this kind of synergy between your talent and your passion, and then providing you the opportunity to go into work. So the first iteration of that is a marketplace. So we have a marketplace where graduates can pitch themselves. So they enter kind of their experience, what they're good at, what they're looking for, and upload a video. And then they kind of leave that video online, and we give employers the tools.
The video is effectively their...
It's kind of a cover letter.
Cover letter,
yeah.
Okay.
And then we give employers the tools to search for and find candidates. So it helps candidates discover opportunities that they might not have thought were suitable for them, because they're actually being hand-picked and invited to jobs rather than kind of casting their net wide and applying to jobs themselves.
So it's the companies who are seeking to recruit who do the searching.
Exactly.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we actually found that the job board model was not just inefficient for candidates who were hearing nothing back, it was hugely inefficient for companies as well, who were receiving thousands of applications. It was impossible to filter through, and they have to turn to recruiters to do the filtering for them. So the much more efficient process is that candidate comes first, an employer has the ability and the tools to search for and filter the right people.
Right, so it really changes the polarity of the process.
Exactly. So it's all about championing the candidate, putting them first,
yeah.
and making sure our technology can pull out the best matching people.
And it's obviously got traction, 30,000 members at the moment?
So 35,000 at current count and growing. So we have a really engaged core community of users. That's fantastic, and something that's quite unique about the platform as well. We had this idea about putting candidates first and giving employers the tools to find them. And we found initially it didn't work because candidates were being unresponsive. They weren't getting back to employers. Employers were inviting them to jobs, and candidates didn't reply.
So almost the same problem.
Almost the same problem.
Yeah.
And once we started diving into the reasons why, we found that candidates had become disengaged with online recruitment services in general because they'd lost that element of trust. They didn't really realise that these opportunities were real. They thought it was spam because of all the stuff that comes through the job boards. So we decided that we would pay them. So we introduced this kind of digital currency, and we started rewarding users for their engagement. So now when a candidate gets invited to a job by an employer, they can earn something small like £1 for responding quickly. And it builds that element of trust and gamification with our community, and it also shows them that we care about them, we value their interactions in a world that is typically shrouded with mystery, and candidates are being commoditized and sold for someone else's interest.
And did you find that changed the behaviour of the candidates?
Almost overnight. We went from kind of 10% response rate, which is similar to LinkedIn, to over 80% response rate.
Wow.
And we found it's really kind of engaged our community. They really cared about what we were doing. They saw us as the good guys that really understood them, and it's had a fundamental shift on the business.
I'm sure people are wondering, the financial people out there at least, how this business model works. If you're paying candidates, how do you make money as a business?
So we charge employers. So we have kind of a couple of models. We can have traditional success-based pricing, So akin to a recruiter, we'll only take a fee once someone gets employed. We also offer people a 90-day, 100% refund if it doesn't work out. But that's really to transition people to kind of a subscription model. So we want employers to have access to all the candidates they want, unlimited hiring for kind of a monthly or annual fee. And that's really where we want to transition a business. We want to move slowly away from the success fee model because it limits use and accessibility, and towards a much more open and inclusive model that allows more employers to come in and help more people find meaningful work.
So it seems like you're borrowing a concept from digital advertising in a way. It's like a pay-per-click model, isn't it?
It's
an acquisition model. I was reading one of your articles on Medium, and you talk a lot about employee disengagement. Tell me more about your views there.
So when employees actually go into work, so it's a lot of companies, especially the more traditional ones, aren't really thinking about the needs or the wants or the desires of the new generation moving into the world of work. And it's really important to take into account the things that are being seen as more valuable. Things like the ability to work from home, or remote working, or flexibility to come in through different hours of the day. And these things, these perks, if they're core to the culture of a company, can really build and band together a community of employees. But traditional companies, they're not offering these things, the big corporates, the PwCs of the world. So actually great candidates that would traditionally go down that route are starting to be pulled into these newer tech companies that are offering these things for candidates.
Right. I've got some good friends at PwC. Actually, they've got some very innovative apprenticeship programs as well. So I think in many senses also one of the leaders in the market. The process of applying for a job is fundamentally different. It's certainly different than it was when I was applying. And there are probably people watching or listening who are thinking, okay, I'm getting to that stage. What does a good CV look like? What does a good cover letter look like? How should I think about presenting myself to prospective employers? You must get a lot of data. You see what good looks like, what bad looks like. What's your advice for candidates?
So we believe in the power of video and human interaction, and we believe in that combined with technology to provide matches. So, all of the candidates on our platform, for example, have a video cover letter, and that helps this intangible match that is still required. We see to kind of do the initial screening, and we see it the same as the company. So not just candidates being able to present themselves via video, we want companies to be able to present themselves via video, so that people can find each other and it's a mutual match. In terms of skills, we're still seeing people look for the traditional indicators, universities, degrees, things like that. But we're seeing a trend away from those things and towards more less obvious indicators, achievements, out of work things, things like if you're a captain or a sports team, or you went out of your way to get a good grade in an instrument, things that show that you have resilience and things that show you're going to go above and beyond. They're the things that can really help the candidate stand out, and they actually significantly trump some of the traditional things like whether you got a 2-1 or a first. So yeah, we kind of push people to really think about what are those things that can become those indicators. Because a lot of times candidates, they have them, they've done them, it's part of who they are, but they don't think it's important to an employer and they don't put it into their profile or their CV. But it's our job to show them what is important.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I do a lot of recruiting in my work, and I have to say I very rarely look at all at formal qualifications. Yeah. I go straight to, okay, who is this person? What have they done outside work? What do I see here that demonstrates a depth of character and makes this somebody who I'd like to meet, somebody who's interesting. So completely agree. And from an employer point of view, what would be your advice? How do you make yourself attractive as a prospect to candidates?
So as I said about really thinking about what are the perks and the things candidates care about these days, and it really revolves around freedom. The freedom of and freedom comes from trust, and trust needs to be earned. So it's kind of a three-way process. But yeah, just really thinking about what are your policies for flexible work? Are you truly a diverse and inclusive hirer? Does your team represent that? Are you focusing on promoting your employee brand? And the forward-thinking companies are treating their social media accounts not to acquire customers all the time, but also to acquire the best employees, to show what the culture's like, to bring in those kind of people. And it's thinking about it really holistically to build a good picture of your company and your brand.
Right. So let's pivot a little in the conversation and talk about your experience as an entrepreneur. You are a co-founder, and my understanding is your co-founder partner is no longer in the business. So tell me about that.
Yeah, so we started the company about 4.5 years ago now. And Matthew Cinderberry, who's my co-founder, we had been best friends since primary school. From selling sweets in the playground, we'd always been quite entrepreneurial together, and we started it together after university. And after 3 years, he had found a girlfriend who lived in New York, and decided to move out there to stay with her permanently. So we had to come to a difficult decision, which was for him to transition out of the business. And he's still my best friend for reference. We've still got a great relationship, but it was a difficult period in the company's life. And I think when you go into a company and a startup, and when you're really in the trenches, it feels like it is everything. It's your whole life. It's all encompassing. And it's easy to forget that people are on their own journeys, and people need to progress their own agendas. Very happy for him. He's now engaged.
That's great.
So it worked out incredibly well. And we've managed to build the team to fill in kind of the responsibilities that were required. And we've managed to build a bit more of an experienced team, which is also exciting. But yeah, these are the pivots and the road bumps that come along the way. And after speaking with a lot of VCs and founders, it's not uncommon. It's quite a normal thing to happen after 4 years of seeing the same face every day. That's quite unique in itself. It was an interesting challenge, but one we fortunately overcame.
That's good. And he's on to his sort of a startup of a different kind, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The new marriage. It can be a lonely place, right? Being a founder. So I guess having a co-founder there is a good tonic for that. Would you recommend it? If you started another business, a different business, would you do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, for me at least, it was fundamental in, especially when the times are tough and it's difficult. Having someone that you can talk candidly about when things are going wrong and things are difficult is incredibly important. And as a founder, as a CEO of a small company, when you have investors and shareholders and a team, you constantly have to be positive and optimistic and talk about how great things are going. It's kind of part of the role. And having someone that you can turn to and really problem solve and speak honestly is really important. Fortunately, I still have a great network of mentors and advisors who you can have those conversations with. But they'll never quite understand the business as much as someone who's in there day to day in the trenches.
Of course. So if I'm an employer, how do I do business with JobLab? If I'm a candidate, what do I do? I'll link below, by the way.
Excellent. So Yeah, it's all self-serve, so you can just visit joblab.com. Candidates can sign up, add their preferences, discover what their talents and passions are, and then get invited to opportunities. Employers can, again, visit joblab.com, sign up, list a job, and immediately they'll see the best matching candidates from a pool of talent.
Brilliant. Link below. Closing thoughts. Many people watching or listening may be about to enter the job market. Any advice for them?
Good luck. Don't settle. I think it's really important, if you're entering the job market, to set yourself up on the right path. So to really think about what it is that you are kind of innately talented at, what are the things that make you special, and then what are the things that you care about, what are you passionate about, and trying to marry those together. And really taking time at that stage in your career to think about what those things are is really important. But also not to let that become too overbearing. There is an opportunity when you're young and entering the job market to try a few things, to experiment, to test ideas and pivot. So it's about just going forward confidently.
Well, advice from the quintessential entrepreneur, Aidan Cramer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Craig.